I'm Renee Williams.
And I'm Billy Thomas.
And welcome to another edition of From the Woods Today. You know, Billy, we're talking about white oak, and it has a lot of uses, everything from bourbon barrels to food for wildlife.
Yeah, no doubt about it, Renee. It's one of those kind of keystone species, really, really important. And, you know, as white oak goes, a lot of other things go along with that. And we're going to be talking today with Dr. Jeff Stringer, who is the director of the White Oak Initiative and also the department chair here at UK Forestry and Natural Resources Extension. And he's going to be talking about the importance of white oak. And we also have Dr. Amanda Gumbert's going to be talking about Water Week coming up. She's got a segment for us there. And then we're going to wrap up today's program with Bridget Abernathy. Bridget is the assistant director at the Kentucky Division of Forestry, and she's going to be talking about the history of Arbor Day, as well as a big celebration that the Kentucky Division of Forestry is doing in cooperation with some of our folks down at the Robinson Center for Appalachian Resource Sustainability. So just really excited about today's show. I do have to give a quick shout out, Renee, to the Simpson County Extension Office, who is hosting me today to be with everyone. So a big shout out to the Simpson County Extension Office. And it's just a reminder for all of our viewers out there, if you don't know your county offices across Kentucky, please get to know those folks. They're outstanding, and they're there in your community, and they're really trying to help make their communities more vibrant. So get to know them and get involved. But if you all have any questions today for us or our presenters, you can use the chat function. And if you're on YouTube, we're delighted to have you all with us as well.
You know, there's one in every county, so a county agent, you know, can help you out a lot with whatever kind of issues you might be having.
Yeah, they're a great starting point for so much. Yes,
a wide variety of knowledge. So speaking of knowledge, let's go ahead and get started. So Dr. Stringer, if you'd like to turn on your camera. Good morning. Thank you for joining us today.
Welcome.
Good morning. Appreciate that. And it was a good introduction into white oak, and we'll kind of continue with that and provide little details as was mentioned before. Of course, white oak is a keystone species for the state. We use it economically, very important, and very important for other things as well, ecosystem services, wildlife. So good forest management for a lot of people involves and means good management for white oak. And so it's got some challenges that it faces. We're going to talk about those and ultimately what we can do about it. So I'm going to share my screen. We'll get this started.
Excellent. Looking forward to it and appreciate it.
Looks good.
All right. So we'll talk about the importance of white oak and some of its challenges. This is just a map and shows where white oak, and when we're talking about white oak here, we are talking about one species, Orchis alba, for those that are technically aligned. Okay. This is the true white oak or American white oak. They have white oaks in Europe and that kind of thing, but this is native to North America. You see the range, extremely important throughout the eastern U.S. Hardwood territory covers a big geographical area. Okay, from the standpoint of economics and its importance in the forest, though, this central part of its range, and Kentucky's right in the middle of that. Tends to support most of the white oak volume that's harvested. Okay, most of the utilization of white oak comes from this general area. Certainly, do you cut white oak up in the Lake States and New England and in the deeper South? Yes, but the majority of it and the quality of white oak comes from the area. It's in the middle of the range here. And we look a little inset here into Kentucky. You can kind of see three regions I've generally circled. I mean, you can probably find white oak, no doubt, in every county. In all 120 counties, we've got white oak. But a lot of it is obviously in eastern Kentucky. There's some pockets of it south central and in western Kentucky, and those areas are kind of delineated by the red ovals here. So it's quite important to us. Okay. So we'll talk a little bit further about what we use it for, both from an economic and wood products perspective and our industry as well as other things. And if you look at any one individual tree, you can get different product types or different quality of material from any individual tree. Typically a lower portion of the tree, if it does have the right quality to it, now it could be hollow and those kind of things. We'll talk more about that. But a solid tree, nice white oak tree, you're going to get some higher quality products from the bottom of the tree. Lumber, veneer, the highest quality product we have, stave logs, that's for barrel production, comes out of there. And then as you move up the tree, then you start to decrease the quality of material that you're able to get out of those logs, right? So railroad ties, cants, crane mats, things of stuff that go into pallets, that kind of thing, the lower value material. And then all the smaller material, the branch wood stuff, pulp woods and pallet. And then of course there's the residual that's in the top. So that's all from a lumber economic perspective, and totally that's important in the state. Overall, our wood industry provides about $3 billion annually. Oak and white oak is an important part of that. So it's important from an economic perspective. But as was mentioned earlier, white oak has the most, very important for wildlife, has the most palatable acorn of all the oak species we have, more palatable to wildlife and more important for wildlife than the red oaks, for example. So it's a great wildlife food. The tree itself provides habitat for bats, all those kind of things outside of food. So it's an important component for our ecosystem, for our wildlife, and for our economics. And therefore, attention to its management would logically indicate it's important. Okay. I do want to mention this, that you can't talk about white oak without talking about one of our key products from Kentucky, and that's bourbon whiskey. And of course, in order to make our bourbon here in the state, from all the different distillers that do so, you got to have white oak. So white oak is what goes in the barrels. It has specific wood properties that allow it to work good for that. All our distilleries use wood from Kentucky and surrounding states in barrel production. So it's a big deal for us and supports, and that economic figure of 13 billion does not include bourbon production, which I could claim and others could claim as it is a wood product. 70% of the flavor profiling in bourbon comes from white oak. So it's a big thing with taste, and then all the colors. So functionally, it's a wood product. The corn and small grain growers don't like to hear that, but we can claim that economic importance as well. So let's look a little bit about what's going on with our white oak. We talk about what it's being used for, and this is simply a graph put together from several states, including ours and around us, that shows different ages across the bottom of the graph there. You can see that in 10-year increments. And then the height of the bar there represents how many acres of white oak, classified white oak forest we have, in our states and surrounding states, right? So there's a lot of white oak forest out there, tens of millions of acres in the region. So it's really important from that standpoint. Now, what you can notice about this graph is, though, that we peak out in somewhere that 60 to 80 year range. That's the age of most of our white oak forests. Of course, they can be older than that as well. Now, the problem is when you look at this, right, you don't see the acres of younger material coming on to take its place, okay? And why is that? Because we have a lack of white oak regenerating on all of our sites that currently have white oak on it. So we have white oak growing, white oak forests out there, and we're not regenerating. And that's why we see this, what we call this bell-shaped curve, a pronounced amount of acres that's in that middle range with not much coming. And of course, the problem with that is over time, this curve moved right. We're doing this presentation 10 years from now, this whole thing shifts to the right, or 20 or 30 or 40 or 50. So as all these tens of millions of acres that are now 60 and 80 years old, which are, available for harvest, they will grow older. And that's okay. There's no problem with that. That's what oak forests do. And white oak lives a long time. So it'll hang with us, but we will continue to harvest out of that. Eventually, some of it will start to die, and if we're not replacing it, that can be a problem. Okay. So what are we going to do about that and how that's going to work? Because what we don't want to do is 50 years from now, okay, look out there and find out that we have abundant of older material that we're still harvesting from, thank goodness, right? But we're not replacing that with many acres. So this is what we don't want to see happening over time in our white oak forest. In a perfect world, that graph, all those bars would be flat basically, and that hardly ever happens. But certainly we want to try to improve this situation. Okay. Now, why is that? So let's just think. So if you think about it, you've got a white oak tree that grow easily 100 years. We've got Lily Cornet Woods that has 450-year-old white oaks in it. And so white oak can grow to a great length, period of time. So think about from the standpoint of we have white oak forests out there now that are 80, 90, 100 years old, 120. Where did they come from? Well, they came from events that happened in that forest 100 years ago, or 120, or 150 years ago, that set the stage driving the forest we have now. So historically, if you think about it, the land use and how we treated the land back in the 1700s and 1800s, much different than what we're doing now. You see all those pictures there. We were clearing for subsistence level farming. We had tanneries going, we were milling it, we had iron furnaces that were cutting it for charcoal and burning the woods all the time, all those kind of things. Fairly abusive and disturbance oriented. And the forests that we have now were generated because of that. Because back then, that land use, what we call land use practices, were creating more open canopies. The understory got killed off, especially those thin bark species like beech, like maple, didn't like fire, for example. So the grazing and everything else basically ran them out of there. And then over time, Smokey Bear kicks in. We quit doing such abusive practice. We started managing the woods better, but that led to canopies which closed up and got tighter, which is fine, right? But the thick understories returned. Okay, the things like the beech and the maple started to reinvade and come back and occupy the forest. So that's a significant difference in land use practice that related to a difference in the way our forests and the composition of those forests are right now. So we take that same settlement time up through today. We talk about open canopies. Well, that's what it looked like. And so a little bit more open canopies, you get rid of all the understory and that kind of thing, do the practice that we're going on, grazing, burning, all those kind of things. And that was oak friendly. And oak likes that, likes a little bit more light, it can regenerate better, those kind of things. And like I said, Smokey Bear kicks in, we quit burning, for lots of good reasons, right? We shouldn't be doing that. And we don't graze in the woods like we used to, all those kind of things. And what happened is that allowed these understories to build back up of species that weren't oak. Beech and maple, its competitors, puts a lot of shade on the ground. And those kind of conditions are difficult for oak to regenerate, because for oak to regenerate, you have to have the development of small seedlings and saplings in the forest stand before it's harvested, for example. If you don't have those there in advance, then you're not going to regenerate oak. It's very difficult for an oak to start out as an acorn and be able to compete with stump sprouts of maple or beech or seed from things that grow very fast like yellow poplar. So oak is going to be a disadvantage if it can't establish young seedlings and saplings early on, before a harvest occurs. Okay, and that you could do back in the 17 and 1800s because the conditions that were there allowed for that to happen. Enough light, enough room for them to grow, the seedlings and saplings to establish themselves, right? And now, because of our practices, it's more difficult to do. So I hope this makes intuitive sense to everybody. Well, let's show a little data about our current white oak situation. This was taken from a analysis that was done for the White Oak Initiative, which we'll talk more about here in a little bit. And this simply shows the range of white oak in the eastern U.S. And the lighter the color, the higher percentage of white oak there is in the woods. So you can see, like in the Ozarks, for example, there's a lot of white oak out there in the Ozarks. And you can see that represented by the yellow and kind of green color. You see there's a lot up and down in eastern Kentucky along generally around the Daniel Boone and that kind of thing. But there's other areas in the east that, 20 to 40 to 50% of the forest have white oak involved in them. So white oak is important. Okay, now let's ask the question is, how are these stands that are currently in white oak, how are they faring from a regeneration standpoint? Let me show you another graph. Now, let's flip this around color-wise from the standpoint of what's important. The darker the shade here, the more abundant the oak regeneration is in existing stands. Seedlings and saplings, are they present or not? Okay, so you're going to see that the darker colors represent areas where the white oak forests that are in those areas, right, have more seedlings and saplings in them. Okay, we call that advanced regeneration. So it's natural regeneration. They're present before harvest. So you see the Ozarks are faring fairly well. But what happens is you don't see those really dark colors through the rest of the range. Matter of fact, there's some of the range that has like none of the sample plots that are in that area, none of them have white oak in them. So all of a sudden now you've got 40 or 50% of the white oak range that have that or more that only has half the stands at best are regenerating. So this is the issue, and this is what causes that bell-shaped curve, or that curve of acres of white oak forest and the age, right? That's what causes this to not have many stands that are, 0 to 10 or 10 to 20 years old. So this was research, recent research that was done, exhaustive research that was done. One of the individuals did it, Dr. Lance Vickers, who's here on now one of our faculty here at the University of Kentucky, did this analysis. Now, not all white oak trees are the same. We talked about different quality products coming out of one white oak tree. Well, white oak trees different in quality. I think everybody intuitively can understand that. You have really good quality timber out there, called grade 1 trees out there, and then you have ones that are hollow or lots of knots in them, that are lower grade. And there's harvesting going on all of this, right? There's a lot of pressure right now on the better quality material for high quality lumber production, flooring, those kind of things, veneer production, and stave logs for barrel production. So if you look at this graph, this map right here, you see all the different colored areas right here. The red areas are places where there is more harvest of white oak going on than there is growth. The dark green areas represent, well, there's growth, but not that much of that exceeds harvest. So you can see this. We have this over harvesting, particularly of high quality material. It kind of goes on everywhere. Okay, so all of this is concern if you're talking about sustainability. Okay, and growing good white oak. You see the picture of the white oak there on the left hand side of the screen. That's a beautiful white oak tree from not only from the standpoint of products, right? So there's lots of good quality veneer, stave logs, the stave and barrels that can come out of that, those kind of things. It's also a great nut acorn producer for wildlife. You can in the upper parts of it where you have flaky bark, bats can reside there during the summertime and those kind of things. So that's a very high quality white oak tree. Well, the growing of those things is no accident, right? And what's right now is needed to help us be able to regenerate oak really well and grow it really well is good forest management. Okay? And we'll talk a little bit more about that here in a minute when we wrap this up. And there's sources for this help. The Kentucky Division of Forestry provides technical service to landowners, to woodland owners, to help them develop a management plan. And if you've got white oak in the woods, you're interested in white oak management, they can help you with that. We have consulting and industry foresters out there as well. So you need professional assistance to figure out how to do this in your woods. It's not rocket science, but it is science. And it takes somebody that's experienced in that to know how to help you to do that. And we've got lots of good foresters out there in Kentucky that are available to assist you with that. We need then practices to encourage white oak regeneration. So good management, part of that is being able to do things that will develop seedlings and saplings in existing stands. And then to finish it off, we need white oak friendly harvesting, right? So we need harvests that are done in a way that helps promote white oak. So we need all these different components if we want to sustain white oak. Now, a lot of us know this, and we've known this from a scientific standpoint for a long time, but in 2017, we had a bunch of key stakeholders. So these are industries that are interested in white oak. These are conservation groups that are interested in white oak, universities, state agencies like the Kentucky Division of Forestry. So we all got together in 2017, and ultimately we formed what's called the White Oak Initiative. You see the logo up there. And what you're seeing on the screen here is actually the flash page or home page, and I'll show you the address here at the end for the White Oak Initiative. So we formed this White Oak Initiative. So the initial partners in all this that formed the initiative were you can see their different logos up here. You'll notice some, you're here in Kentucky. You'll notice Brown-Forman, corporate headquarters in Louisville, manufacturers of Old Forester, which is favorite of Foresters, obviously. And Jack Daniels whiskey out of Tennessee is owned by Brown-Forman. You'll see Sazerac logo right underneath that. So there's several distillers that are here. Sazerac, Buffalo Trace, Martin, Independent State Pork, top right. They're the biggest producer of barrels in the world. They have manufacturing facilities in Europe and here in North America. They're Their home is Missouri, but they have a big footprint here in Kentucky. Other organizations like American Forest Foundation, far left, that's Tree Farm, all that kind of thing. You can see Wild Turkey Federation there, NRCS, U.S. Forest Service, and there's Alabama for their state agencies and all that. And the Kentucky Division of Forestry had a huge part in the start of this because we were able to get several $1 million of federal grant money, and KDF played an important part of getting that here that allowed us to start to work on all this. So the Division of Forestry in Kentucky has been a huge player in this White Oak initiative. So I want to show about a 2-minute video here that talks a little bit about this initiative, and you're going to see people talking here that are from different parts of the industry, landowners and all that. It's about a 2.5 minute video. So we'll fire it up and then we'll finish this up after the video.
A lot of different people for a lot of different reasons care about our white oak forests.
Numbers right now are showing that growing stock of younger oaks is declining.
That causes a long-term sustainability concern.
Because it's a slowly evolving issue, it's hard to bring often attention to it because it's not something that just happens overnight.
Because if it takes 50 or 80 or 100 years to grow this, you have to think about it now.
We've got a lot of middle-aged to older age forests. What's missing is a lot of the younger.
40 to 50 years from now, we may have a tightening of supply.
That would really hurt a lot of industry.
There's a demand for higher quality white oak, for barrel production, for veneer, for lumber production, all those kind of things.
The challenge is landowners being aware of good management practices, loggers being aware of good logging practices.
That's what the White Oak Initiative is trying to address. Part of what the White Oak Initiative is doing is taking all of this wide variety of organizations coming together to say, how do we teach farmers, either private or public, to grow or maintain their forest?
What we do is step in and give them a leg up. As a result of that, allow the white oak to compete, grow larger, faster, and regenerate the site. Once we have adequate reproduction on the ground, then we can start thinking about our harvest.
To fix long-term forestry issues like we have here, it takes collaboration.
We're often working with clients on a multi-generational basis.
The oak regeneration that we've seen today, my grandchildren may end up harvesting that.
When forest land is managed well, it produces benefits not only to the owner of that land, but it produces benefits far beyond those boundaries that benefit the public at large.
This is where we get clean water from. This is where we get wildlife habitat. If we want to have all those things, 50, 100 years from now, you have to manage this resource.
So by being foresightful and looking ahead, we now can enjoy the things that we so value from oak forests.
So that gave you a little intro into the White Oak Initiative itself, and it started in 2017. Of course, it takes a little bit to get organized and going. We started to produce things. One of the things the initiative done is produced a conservation plan, a region-wide or range-wide conservation plan for white oak that gives a roadmap as to where we need to be managing, the things that need to be done to manage in those areas, how to prioritize our work and our effort. We also have developed a set of landowner education materials. So talking about explaining some of this in more detail that we've talked about here, as well as providing landowners information on the different practices that could be used and what goes into those practices, and how to get help in dealing with all that. The initiative also has developed forester training. We're training loggers right now as part of the Master Logger Program, special programs on white oak. We're dealing with, the initiative is dealing with policy development, making sure there's money in the Farm Bill for white oak and forestry and those kind of things, as well as supporting research. And what's coming up for landowners is, along with all these references that we have, we are in the process of developing a mobile app and a website that will allow a landowner to be able to go in there and look at your woods, and be able to answer some simple questions, take some photos, look at some pictures in the app, and help you determine, what your situation is relative to white oak. What's the sustainability of white oak in your woodlands? Is it good, bad, or poor? And then how to get help with that. And so I really look forward to getting that done. It'll really bolster the resources we have to help with white oak, because ultimately we want to start to develop a sustainable amount of white oak forest growing out there. So we start to flatten out this curve, if you will, of the different amount of acres by age class and that kind of thing. And that's what we hope to see 50 years from now. And if you want more information on the White Oak Initiative, you can get it at whiteoakinitiative.org. And I would encourage everybody to certainly go to that site and check it out. So this has been a quick and dirty white oak sustainability and its challenges. There's a lot to it. Pretty simple in concept. There's a lot to it. And we have a lot of professional forestry help that can help landowners on the ground with that, answer questions and that kind of thing, and specifically with the Division of Forestry and the other foresters that are out there, consultants in the industry as well.
We greatly appreciate your presentation, Jeff. It was very informative.
Yeah, I really appreciate how you painted the picture that this really is a process, right? We just don't get white oak just by happen chance, right? We have to really work at it. And, it's so great that there's so many organizations that have come together and really rallied around this species. And I think the White Oak Initiative is just a wonderful example of what can happen when we get partners together working for a common goal. So kudos to the whole White Oak Initiative for kind of organizing, getting everybody together and drawing so much attention and support to this really critical species that's so important, not only for wildlife, but for our woodland owners and our forest industry and all of us. So really appreciate it, Jeff. Good work.
Thank you.
Let's see, getting questions for Jeff?
Doesn't look like we had any questions.
All right. Well, Dr. Stringer, again, thank you so much for that. It's good stuff. And folks, I encourage you to check out the White Oak Initiative. Some of those recent fact sheets are really impressive. So some great information there to help us make sure we can take care of this species.
One of the things that just popped up in the chat was a question about sending acorns in. And I didn't mention this because it's too much to mention involving white oak and everything we're doing. We do have a very large genetic project that's going on, and we've requested getting acorns from parent trees throughout the range of white oak. And we have over, I think, somewhere in the order of like 320, 340 mother trees, if you will, or large acorn tree that have acorn producing trees throughout the range where people have collected the acorns and sent them in. So, it's a big effort, the biggest effort that's ever been done with hardwood trees in the US, and a lot of volunteers providing acorns and information for that.
Yeah. Yes, indeed. Thanks to all who have contributed to that effort for sure.
All right. Looks like that was the only question that came in. So thanks again, Jeff. We greatly appreciate you being on. We really appreciate all your help with getting the word out about white oak and all the challenges that it's facing.
Glad to do it. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Coming up, we've got another topic. It's a little wet.
Yeah, it goes along with the weather we've got here. Dr. Amanda Gumbert could not be with us today, but she did prepare this presentation. I think she was recording it last night or just real recently to get it ready for us. But she's going to be talking about Water Week. So.
Hi, this is Amanda Gumbert, Extension Specialist for Water Quality with the UK College of Agriculture, Food and Environment, and I'm here to talk about Water Week. Before we get into Water Week, let's think a little bit about water quality and how it reflects our treatment of the landscape. We can reflect back on Luna Leopold's quote, and he said, "Water is the most critical resource issue of our lifetime and our children's lifetime. The health of our waters is the principal measure of how we live on the land." And basically that's true. The quality of our water here in Kentucky is truly reflective of how we utilize the land and how we manage it. So this week we're celebrating Water Week in Central Kentucky. Water Week runs March 18th through the 26th this year, and there are lots of activities available for you to participate in if you live in the Lexington area, or there are virtual events that you can participate in if you live away from Central Kentucky. Regardless of where you are and where you're listening to this, I really encourage you to get out and explore your local waterways. So, Water Week is centered around World Water Day. And today, Wednesday, March 22nd, 2023, is indeed World Water Day. It's celebrated annually on March 22nd and really is to bring our attention to the importance of fresh water worldwide. World Water Day encourages sustainable management of global freshwater resources, and it's in support of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal number 6, which is clean water and sanitation for all by the year 2030. World Water Day really encourages us to take action on global water and realize that there is a water crisis and that 2.2 billion people are living without access to safe water worldwide. Now, this may seem like a lot to take in and really overwhelming, so let me present to you the Lazy Person's Guide to Saving the World. The United Nations has developed a set of tools and suggestions, and they call it the Lazy Person's Guide to Saving Water. So I encourage you to visit the website that's here on the screen, or just use your browser to search for Lazy Person's Guide to Saving Water, and you will see lots of options for ways that you can get involved locally and make wise choices that are good for water quality. Those things can be as things like getting informed about water issues like you're doing here and learning more about local waterways. You can shop sustainably. Both of those are things that you can do from the comfort of your own home, and you can hit that level 1 sofa superstar. You can also do things around the house like take shorter showers. You can do things that we like to talk about here at From the Woods today, such as plant a tree. And also you can participate in a local stream cleanup. It doesn't have to be organized. All you need is a trash bag, a pair of sturdy gloves, and a pair of sturdy shoes, and you can go out and pick up trash and do something great for your waterway. So again, I encourage you to check out our Water Week activities. They're all across Lexington and Central Kentucky. We participated in one over the weekend which is a bio blitz here on UK's campus in one of our restored waterways. This is along Alumni Drive near the football stadium. And we also have another UK stream restoration bio blitz planned for this Saturday, March 25th, near the UK softball stadium along Alumni Drive. So if you're going to be in Lexington, please come out and join us from 10 a.m. to noon. And if you can't join us for our bio blitz, how about taking a walk along your stream, checking out your stream side buffer zone? And if you don't have a stream buffer, maybe think about installing one or letting one establish. So we've found some really interesting young trees in our buffer and also some tadpoles. So I'll pose this question to you. What's living in your stream buffer? Also, I mentioned that we have some virtual events. One of those is a town branch virtual water walk, and you can explore the cultural history as well as some urban ecology that's along the corridor of Town Branch Creek, which you can't really see as you're walking through downtown Lexington, but know that it flows predominantly underneath Lexington, and there are now several trails that are around the downtown area, including Town Branch Commons, which does follow the path of Town Branch Creek. So remember, Kentucky is a rich state with water resources. We have more than 90,000 miles of streams and rivers and over 400,000 acres of lakes. So we are blessed with lots of water resources, but also we have a big responsibility to take care of those resources. So again, I encourage you to get out, enjoy Kentucky's water resources, and Reach out if you have questions about Water Week or any water quality questions in general. Thanks so much.
We greatly appreciate Amanda Gumbert doing that video for us. It's always interesting to find out, there's different aspects of forestry, right? Trees,
Yes.
water, all that, and that was just one of them.
Yeah, and she reminded us that trees are the answer, right? Trees along the stream are a good thing, and they can help buffer the water that's in there. So, real big thanks to Dr. Gumbert for putting that together for us, and I encourage you all to get out and participate in one or more of these Water Week events.
Exactly. So, speaking of an event, we could be moving on. Bridget Abernathy is here to talk to us about an event that she's going to be over. Welcome, Bridget.
Welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Good
I'm
to
going
have
to share my screen and then I'll go ahead and get started.
you. Sounds good. Thank you so much.
There we go. So I am here today and thanks for providing me a few minutes of time to talk about our Kentucky Arbor Day celebration that's coming up on April 6th. But first I thought I would talk a few minutes about the history of Arbor Day, the national history of Arbor Day, and then how it came to be established here in Kentucky. So I'll go ahead and get started. I just have a few historical photos and some photos of some recent celebrations as well. So this year we will celebrate our 127th Arbor Day here in Kentucky. But the history of Arbor Day, it dates back all the way back to 1872, and it started actually in Nebraska. And so there's a man named J. Sterling Morton. He was initially a local newspaper editor. He was a tree enthusiast, and he later was the secretary of what was then the Nebraska Territory. And then he was also President Grover Cleveland's Secretary of Agriculture later. So he proposed a tree planting holiday that would later become Arbor Day. So in Nebraska, of course, we think about the Great Plains. Early settlers, they missed trees from where they came from in the east, but they also needed these trees. They needed them as windbreaks against the rolling prairie winds. They needed fuel for heating and for cooking. They needed build different building materials, and of course, shade for the hot prairie sun. And so Morton lobbied and spoke to many different audiences about the need for not only environmental stewardship, but the need for just planting trees. So finally, in 1872, the Nebraska State Board of Agriculture accepted a resolution that was presented by Morton. And this was presented to, quote, set aside one day to plant trees, both forest and fruit. So we had many different values here, trees for forest, shade, and for agriculture. So the initial celebration day was set for April 10th in 1872, and there were different prizes that were offered to individuals and to counties for the largest number of trees planted on that day. And it was estimated that more than 1 million trees were planted in Nebraska on that first Arbor Day, which is pretty amazing. So I have some early pictures of some of these Arbor Days that I'll scroll through as I go along. So over the course of many years, states throughout the nation designated a day to celebrate Arbor Day. And states chose different days and months that corresponded with the best time to plant trees. So for instance, in Louisiana, their Arbor Day is at the latter part of January. And as we move into northern latitudes, they're much, much later in the spring. So our National Arbor Day actually is celebrated on the last Friday of April. And that happens to be April 29th of this year, but Kentucky's Arbor Day has been designated for many, many years as the first Friday in April. And today we think about Arbor Day as a celebration of trees and really all the benefits they provide. So that could be environmental, social, economic, and many of the human health benefits that we have from trees. So, and this is kind of a neat tidbit of information. I have these two publications in my office, and they were, kind of passed down from earlier staff over many decades. But these are these original publications. The first one on the left is a 1912 publication. And the records in this publication show that Kentucky's governor at the time, James B. McCurry appointed our first state forester, John Barton, the previous year. So that was when the Kentucky Division of Forestry was established. So in that year, in 1912, all 120 counties were urged by the governor to plant a tree on the Kentucky State Capitol grounds. And the publication outlines in detail about the species and the planting locations for these trees. And what's really neat is many of these trees still exist on those Capitol grounds today. So that was, kind of a glimpse as to one of our early Arbor Days, though not one of our first Arbor Days, but an early Arbor Day that had a lot of significance. And today, Arbor Day is celebrated on a local level in communities throughout Kentucky. So many different communities and campuses and schools celebrate Arbor Day within their community. And with Kentucky Arbor Day, we have celebrated at different locations also throughout the year. So sometimes we've celebrated actually at our Kentucky State Capitol, but we have also moved our state Arbor Day celebration to different communities throughout Kentucky. So this is a glimpse of some of our local Arbor Days that have been celebrated throughout Kentucky. We have going left to right, City of Lexington. We have an Arbor Day celebration and tree planting in the Rowdy area, which is also happening the same week this year. Bowling Green and University of Louisville and some others. So last year's Arbor Day we celebrated in Mayfield. Of course, Mayfield was devastated by the 2021 tornadoes that occurred. It had a huge effect on the downtown area and surrounding areas of Graves County. And the celebration this year will be structured similarly, but it's really meant to bring the community together. So this year, we plan to celebrate Arbor Day at the University of Kentucky's Wood Utilization Center, and that's right outside of Jackson in Breathitt County. And of course, Breathitt County was one of the many areas that was affected by the devastating flooding that occurred last summer. And so, we hope that this event will bring a sense of, maybe a sense of recovery and resiliency by celebrating, planting, and also distributing trees. So just a little bit about the event. This is going to occur, as I said, on Thursday, April 6th. That's going to be at 1 o'clock at the UK Wood Utilization Center. This flyer is available. It's available on our Facebook page, and I've sent it out to many, many entities, and I'm happy to share it with others as well. But it provides some useful information with the address. And the structure of the event will be a short ceremony. We'll have a few speakers. A ceremonial tree planting, and we're going to be planting the tree, which is kind of a large bald and burlap tree, in the educational tree grove on the property. And then we will have a tree distribution. We will be distributing 500 seedlings from Kentucky Division of Forestry's nurseries. I think we'll have about 5 different species to distribute. And hopefully it's the time to just bring everybody together. So this is a great time for, our forestry and tree expert partners, between UK Forestry, but also Division of Forestry and many, many others in the area to celebrate trees. So this event is open to the community. And, we hope that residents, families, students, volunteer groups, and many, many others will join. And so we encourage people to come out. I think it'll be a great day to celebrate trees, and then people can take home a tree with them before they leave the event. This event will occur, and I'll go back to my previous slide. It will occur rain or shine. And if we happen to have some wet weather, we'll have some tents set up to make sure that people can stay as dry as possible. So, moving forward, we hope that you'll come and check out the event. We have some information on our Facebook page that has the flyer. We'll be posting some updated information over these next 2 weeks preceding the event. Or if you want to know how to attend the event, if you're a school group or volunteer group or otherwise, you're welcome to contact me directly, and I can provide you with more information. So we're really looking forward to it. Last year was a beautiful Arbor Day event, and we hope that this year we'll have some great weather and a lot of great attendance as well.
Well, it's always good to plant trees, so thank you. Sorry, Renee.
Someone asked what if we don't live near the event? So what can people do then?
Well, this event is open to everybody, and so if you live nearby, we'd love to have people attend. If people are from adjacent counties, or even want to drive further, they're welcome to attend as well. But if you are unable to attend this event, what I would do is I would check in with your local Division of Forestry office or your local extension office, and sometimes your municipal office as well. So that could be your mayor's office or your county judge executive's office, because there are many local Arbor Day celebrations that are happening really over the next 2 months in Kentucky. And so that's a great way to join in with something that's happening on the local level. And also, you know, the county conservation districts, as well as extension and Division of Forestry, distribute tree seedlings, you know, over these next few months as well. So that's a great opportunity to select hopefully a native species of tree that you can go home and plant on your property or in your yard.
Wonderful.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah. Oh, thank you, Bridget. Really appreciate that segment. And, you know, celebrating trees is always great. So we encourage everybody to get out and celebrate and plant a few trees.
Yes, yes, we'll have a great Arbor Day. Thanks.
Thank you. Great show, Billy. You know, we had a lot of information, covered a lot of ground, and you know, it's always good to get out all this kind of different information on different types of forestry related topics.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And, you know, if you happen to miss any of the segments or had to step away for a second, then these will be available online real soon at fromthewoodstoday.com. A big thanks to Dr. Jeff Stringer for talking about the importance of white oak, and Dr. Amanda Gumbert talking about Water Week 2023, and Bridget Abernathy with the Kentucky Division of Forestry highlighting the Arbor Day celebration coming up on April 6th down in Jackson, Kentucky. So big thanks to all of our guests today.
Definitely. And you know, if like you said, if you miss any of the show, you can go to fromthewoodstoday.com and watch those. And we have over 100 shows on there. You could binge watch it if you wanted to.
Yes.
So we have several different shows, several different topics, you know, over 80 trees if you need to ID trees and that kind of thing. We have a ton of topics. So, you know, you might go check that out. Also, if there is something that you just see in your forest and you're like, what is that? You know, there's a survey on there. You can send us a picture and ask us questions. And we've even done show topics on questions from viewers.
Yeah, no doubt. We encourage you all to get out, check out your woods. You know, it's going to be warmer weather soon. So as you're out there and you're looking around, send us a picture of something cool you see out there, or something maybe you're not sure of. Again, you know, we appreciate y'all being with us. If you know of others who may appreciate this type of information, please share the word about From the Woods Today.
Definitely. You go on our Facebook at Forestry Extension and you can share there. You can click there and click us like, and then you'll know when our shows are going to be on and what the topics are in advance. Also, if you like our YouTube channel, it'll also pop up and it'll say, hey, UK Forestry is going live. So then you won't miss anything. So make sure to do that on our social medias.
Yep. Yeah, we appreciate y'all being with us today, and we'll look forward to seeing you all next week.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Today.